Hello, Active Sage here on the Sage channel, and we are gathered here today to take an extremely close look at the 85X. Now, this is a little snub fighter that originally was only available if you went ahead and purchased, and yes, there's my character there because I'm doing this a bit odd today, if you originally purchased the 890 Jump, a big, old, fantastical ship that is mainly a luxury craft, and this would come with it. Now, what we have here is the standalone version. The 85X can be purchased just on its own at the moment, I believe. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a limited sale. Maybe it was. Either way, it is a snub fighter that you can get your hands on one way or another. Now, unlike most snub fighters, where you would, deploy them from a ship and then be able to fly around, do some pew-pew, and then need to get back into the ship to even get into quantum, travel, this one actually has its own quantum drive, which sets it apart. As for design and art, the main reasons we usually look at these, this one comes with a fantastical holographic glitch displaying a huge radar bubble that we're going to spend most of our time ignoring. As for the actual ship's details, it is a pretty damn streamlined thing that is, well, honestly, a little bit difficult to appreciate from the ground where we're standing here. I've done a circle around it once, and it is a beautiful, streamlined thing, but you don't really get a proper feel from it until you see it from afar. So what I'm going to do is either go ahead and hop in it, or set up our special Spectator Cam. I think the Spectator Cam might give us slightly better stuff if we were to actually hop in it first. So let's head over here and try to find, yep, there's the enter the pilot seat. I found it's pretty difficult to find these on a lot of things. And the ladder comes down. Unfortunately, most of the ships still do that teleport you to the ladder thing and make you climb up into it, which is, well, rather annoying. But you can see we've climbed up into the beautiful thing. Its UIs, I would say, are not exactly finished, and we still have some blue glow about us. This usually goes away once you're actually in space, but we're doing this from a hangar because it usually has slightly better FPS. Now, let's get into that Spectator Cam. And there we go into the Spectator Cam, and as we pan the camera up, suddenly you see the shape of the ship a lot better, and that's where you start to see that these white bits pull out and moosh backwards to the back of the ship, making this beautiful streamlined pattern. The fact that the center point on the ship behind the glass there pops up with almost an intake, and has this cool little black thing that sticks out of it before the whole thing pushes to the back of the ship. And let's see if we can zoom out a little bit more here. There we go. And of course that whole white section I was talking about does lead all the way to the back of the ship, going under this sort of little, back fin, almost bridge thing. Pretty nice. The front of the ship, similar to some other ships, has this indentation right in the middle, like an intake, a nice little thing, but that indentation also allows for the, little bump out to the left and right of that to act as a sort of clamp. As you can see, that piece of geometry carries on its way all the way up and around the glass of the cockpit. It's pretty nifty. It almost feels like the cockpit section itself could completely separate from the rest of the ship in an emergency, basically being ejected from the rest of the ship if something went wrong, and float about as, that big white section turns into the gray section. It looks like it's just clamping onto the cockpit section there. It's a pretty nifty ship. It's, rather nice. Not something I'm planning to keep, mind you, just something I plan to look at. Overall, I feel the ship is actually quite humongous for just a two-person little thing, but considering it does have a quantum drive, makes sense that it would have some size to it. Let's go ahead and go back into first person. We'll just take a quick look at the interiors here. Aiming our camera down, we have a beautiful steering wheel, honestly. It's a sort of sci-fi steering wheel. Of course, it's sort of the same sort of thing modern airplanes would have, let's say, in a jetliner, but it does seem pretty nice. You got some nice wood details and such things in here. In fact, we can probably press Z, and now we can turn our camera without it wanting to auto-reset back. Well, unless I bump the joystick on my controller, and then it auto-does it. But anyway, let's see. Can we tap and get our little mouse up here? There we go. Alt and slash. And you can see here we have some nice wood details. It's weird how this sort of just seems to disappear into this black cowling here. I really don't like that. Maybe it's a graphical glitch, but it is interesting that they have some wood and some, whatnot Nazis, buttons, and things all modeled in here. If we were to go ahead and turn our head to our right, you can see the same sort of thing here, and this is where it makes more sense, where it actually looks like it's going back under this piece of geometry. The blue glow does throw things off a little bit from the holographic thing, but you can see overall it's a very similar design to, let's say, a car. You can see the other seat over there, almost a racing style thing, has a display in front of it and a singular joystick, so you imagine the co-pilot could do something, or assuming this is supposed to be sold with a very fancy big ship, or it's supposed to be a, well, I'm too high and mighty to fly my own things, you might expect the actual rich bloke or gal to be sitting there, and then his chauffeur would be sitting here in this chair. So let's actually hop out of this real quick, holding F. Again, the whole thing has a very car feel to it on the inside particularly. Hop out of that. Again, the ladder automatically closes up. It's pretty nice that they have this whole section here that just pops out. Pretty nifty. Let's move around to the other side. You can see this little thing in here, this black thing with the red around it. That is what I believe so this door slides on. There we go. You see it slides on it, and then of course the ladder comes down. The ladder is a very interesting thing in the fact that it is at least 3 pieces where it slides out, then rotates down, and then these little railings pop up on it. Pretty cool. Unfortunately, of course, you do get teleported into the, well, I say teleported. You get stuck to the ladder, and then it brings you up into the ship. You can also see, as we look around here, you can see some fabric. It's much easier to tell what's going on this side without the blue glow of confusion around you. Yeah, much easier to see. Let's go ahead and do our Z thing here. So we can look over to our... Wow, everything's just gone terribly wrong. I can't actually... Okay. Well, welcome to Star Citizen. Things go wrong from time to time. But you can see they've actually taken the time to model in a little indentation here. It does sort of end up just clipping with this, where the stitching just vanishes into it a bit so-so, but you can see there's a fair amount of geometry in here to actually, well, give it all some bulky mass to it. Like this here, the fact that it comes in curves around, it all feels, well, a lot like a modern, well, supercar. That does bug me an awful lot, how that stitching just disappears into that hard surface there. But the chair itself does look like it's designed to build into the wall. Interesting, the idea that you'd have these almost race strap-like harnesses things coming back. In fact, they might not even be harnesses. I think, oh, there goes our camera again. I think they're just part of the chair that just sort of folds back into it to follow this geometry here. It's all very nice, and they do toss the bits of wood in there. From time to time, they're trying to make it seem even more classy, because of course wood might not be something you'd find too much out in the stars. Beautiful little texture patterns here, almost like, what is that thing, not carbon fiber, carbon fiber nanotubes? No, I'm thinking of something else. Anyway, it's beautiful, it's nice. I quite like the fact that this has this bump out that comes down, and then whoop whoop, the beautiful geometry edges there. I quite like such things like that, as opposed to necessarily just smoothed overall curvature of things. I really like the geometric design in that thing there, and the fact that it does sort of just stick out of the front panel. You almost imagine that once upon a time they were originally just going to have 2 little joysticks or something, and they just had to add this in for more standard usage. Anyway, let's hop out of here. It's not too many little tiny details to see. It's all just a lot of flowing nice shapes. Sometimes it gets a little confusing there on the pilot side, but this side's pretty good. And unfortunately, we can't take a close look at that ladder because, of course, it goes ahead and closes itself up so quickly. Moving on from the front section of the ship, we come to one of the intakes here. And you see we got a cooler we can actually replace. You might have noticed also this ship has some weapons. This is something that always bugs me at Star Citizen. Star Citizen seems to be a very dangerous world. I was hoping for, sort of safer areas, like an idea that maybe you'd have the rich man with his rich space yacht and his nice little vehicle here to get him around, and it wouldn't have any weapons because he thought, I'm never going to be shot at. If I'm shot at, I have my security guards in their ship. So I do always find it odd that these ships are always armed to the teeth, because this ship has this turret here. Well, I say this turret, this gimbaled weapon here, I believe. No, it's just a straight-out gun. But then it has this little gimbaled turret thing down here. And if we were actually able to get onto the ground and crawl under, you can see another turret over there. So the thing is, well, notably armored up. It almost looks like a missile rack here as well. So for the rich man's little skip to get from his yacht down to a planet surface or buzz about between other ships, it's surprisingly armored. Well, armed, not necessarily armored. You can see at the front here we have these nice little intake valve things here, lots of little details. I think this is completely messed up currently. I don't think any of this is supposed to look the way it does right now, because to me that just looks like a confusing mess. Maybe they're trying to do some super highfalutin light pattern, but it comes across as just confusing right now, so I think it's just a bunch of busted up textures at the moment. Maybe. I'm not sure what's going on there. Under here, you can see one of the little jets. It's actually modeled in with a shocking amount of detail. Nice little thing. Another little, almost looks like a maneuvering jet here. I'm not sure if this one will actually work or not. To our left, we have the wheel, which origin, it looks like a racing wheel with a little checkered pattern on it, and a nice amount of detail to the landing gear going up into the ship. In fact, an even circular cutout for the wheel up there, which is awesome to see. You can see this big panel here in front of us as well, presumably designed to slide into place once the wheel has been retracted. Carrying on back here, remember we had that smooth pattern, the white section on top of the ship. We now have a dark gray section here that smooths upwards and carries on back, sort of the same pattern from below. The turret itself down here is a bit lackluster. There's no camera on it, so I don't think you'd be able to necessarily go ahead and, well, use it as a first-person turret, but it of course acts as any gimbal weapon currently. Moving on from that and heading back, we see that dark thing, the dark area that curved up here and has now reached this point, has two little bits of geometry detail pumping down to break up what would otherwise be a relatively flat bottom of the ship, because of course now, that dark gray area, let's actually get our mouse out here so I can point at it better, this dark gray area is up higher than this right here. So if it had just carried on as it is right now, from looking farther back, if we were standing farther from where we are, you would only see this edge right here of this lighter gray panel. You wouldn't actually see anything in between this gray panel and the one over there. So they've gone ahead and added these to give it more detail, and then it looks like the actual darker gray area bulges back down here to come out at the bottom, making a nice balance between the front where it's lower and then the back again. Very nice, gentle shape to that. At the back here, we do have some more little clamps that sort of stick out right here to go ahead and give you a little bit more detail as it reaches up to the back of the ship. Almost looks like something interactable here. I have no idea what these are supposed to be. Maybe lights, maybe barcodes. Not a bloody clue. Moving back here more, we do have our other landing gear. We have 3 of them, of course, in total on this little ship. Pretty nice little design. I actually quite like this piece of geometry right here. It's so bulky and hefty. You know me, I quite like such things. And then, of course, it all looks like it's designed and should function properly, so this wheel will be pulled back and then rotate around and in. Let's see if there is a circular space of any sort. I doubt there would be one. I don't think they'd need one for this one. I can't look up any higher. Of course, our character is currently crawling on the ground like a madman under the ship. Not really anything in there. A little bit bland at times, but it is the interior area of a landing gear, and it's nice that we do have these very interesting pieces of geometry here that reach around the edge there, so that this thing can swing closed, and, well, close up without having any sort of really noticeable mechanical parts on the outside. Real smooth and streamlined. Heading back over here to the front again, we do have another huge old intake here, which is a very interesting design here. It's reminded me some of the intakes and whatnot on Aegis ships. Pretty nice. And overall, it looks good. There's no strange geometry issues for the most part. A few little oddities. You get the feeling of somewhere where the normal maps seem to be bound. Well, I say normal maps, where things seem to be pulling around edges a little bit weird, but it's not too bad, and it's nothing I don't think anybody could really fix without pumping more geometry into it. It starts being a little wibbly here, where the distance between this edge and this edge changes so drastically. I'm not sure I personally like that, but that could be an artistic choice. Yeah, it definitely feels a bit weird here, like it's flattening out. I can't exactly tell what shape it was supposed to be or what shape it is. That's one of those things where, of course, if we had Vive or Oculus support, you would instantly get depth out of that. Anyway, it's a very odd intake here, because from this angle here, you get the feeling it has some pretty pronounced hard edges around those lines there. Like right around here, all around here, you get the feeling it's like a hard edge before it bends towards the back of the ship. But if we were to apparently stand up, I didn't mean stand all the way up. If you were to stand up and come over here, it all just sort of flattens out here. So you don't, I guess it is supposed to be like that, but you don't fully get that feeling out of it. Anyway, that goes ahead and carries on back to where the wheel pops out of it before it just comes up into sort of a little back thruster thing. Again, reminding me slightly of, I believe it was Aegis ships. some other similar things. And you can see back here, I think we got a world hole there, right there, where you can see back into just mechanical workings and things like that in here. And of course back in there it just looks like it's nothingness, doesn't it? It's just a gray plane to block it off. I personally would prefer a little bit more. Here we've come to well, a plethora of details, haven't we? With all these little things reaching out to clamp and hold on to it all, as well as these divided up, nicely lined up with the lower ones. That would be rather annoying if they were not, so it's very nice to see that. Let's stand up, shall we? And bop over here, again, same sort of design we've been seeing. I love these little things, and a lot of very interesting geometry sort of pushing out here. This pushes out at an angle, as you can see, sort of coming almost to a point where this is now cut open, and then these all sort of push out, whoop, 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 bit by bit of this larger silver piece before it of course goes up, and then it goes back in behind it. Again, it looks like it just goes to a black, like right there at that corner, but overall pretty damn nifty and interesting design. Yeah, very interesting. There's a lot of shapes that are popping out of me right now, which is pretty damn cool. Yeah, very cool, actually. Like this indents in pretty dang far. It's even got a little break up, so it's not just an opening, and then this geometry here bumps out. Doot, doot, doot. Has some interesting details to it. And of course this whole area here, even though it's just all dark, does have some interesting geometry to it, even though I would almost expect this piece right here to be a slightly different color to break it up a tiniest little bit. But of course that's something they might have messed with. Interesting. It's like it's a dividing wall almost, where this piece is jutting out from this and just sort of comes to a stop here. This is like I said, a wall, before more geometry carries onto something else. This is an interesting design choice. Again, we have another maneuvering jet here. This just gently, I love the from left to right how it opens up slowly into this huge open back section of the ship. We got a nice little wing here that looks like it might maneuver. I don't see the geometry for that. I doubt that wing in front of us is going to maneuver. This isn't a wing there, of course, directly where we're aiming. That's, of course, the hangar door. I said hangar, landing gear door. And then our other little wing here, which is a rather, oh no, not enter pilot seat, dear me oh my. Adjusted our camera into sort of spectator, and we can now see the wing here. Pretty interesting shapes, similar of course to that back thruster we were looking at, but of course this is an intake, and it seems again much more like something from a car than necessarily a ship, where you have that little gray detail inside there breaking it up, but you also have all these pieces, well, a piece inside a piece, where you feel the whole thing pulling you in, and then there's another piece inside it pulling you in, and then possibly, no, just the dividers in there. Another thruster on top. It's a very nice ship. Anyway, enough babbling around. There's not too many details to look at. Not too many tiny little bits of geometry. Oh, even though we did just get pushed back in the first person there. I just saw these little guys sticking out of the back. Pretty cool that they took the time to model those in and plop them about. Another little vent thing. It's overall pretty nice. It's a very streamlined ship with the idea of a car. Anyway, now that we've looked at it a bit, let's go ahead and take it into the mini PU and take it for a quick spin about, shall we? And here we are in the miniature PU, persistent universe if you don't know. By the way, we will of course have a frame rate cut here. We're only getting roughly 28 frames per second here. Sometimes it drops and ping pongs all about. It's currently tied to apparently number of people on the server. And of course you notice the lower FOV instantly when you have the helmet on, and it becomes very annoying. Anyway, we're not here to babble about that such things. We're here to hop into the ship and of course get teleported to the ladder. I hate that. Let's do an F12, get our chat off the screen, and now that we are in our fanciful ship, the UI should ping pong on. Dun, 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 dun. And you can see now we have the proper little radar thing in the bottom center. The color scheme is absolutely gorgeous, but of course it does get a little bit odd that we have these holographic elements just floating up here and they sort of interlapping some others. Pretty sure the UI is of course not done. And we do get this blue ring around us. This is currently something to do with the landing. That'll go away once we press, well, spacebar and then in. So we've flown up a little bit. I always hate how the ships often, it's like they're stuck to the ground a little bit. They nose up when you go up, instead of just going straight up. Anyway, we'll press in, and we're now in flight mode. Now, we're going to do that again as soon as we get away from the landing pads, because I don't want to be sitting there just taking up space. God, those thrusters are beautiful, aren't they? There we go. Bring us to a stop. Just double check to make sure our throttle's set to zip. Coolio. And now we're going to do an F4 again, and change our camera so we can actually see those landing gears deploying. We'll actually rotate ourselves so we can see them in some sunlight. Boy, oh boy, ain't this ship a beauty. Anyway, we're going to press in, And you can see how everything pops open like we were talking about. Jesus Christ, I'd say it looks even better here than it did in the hangar. Anyway, let's just watch that front wheel. Yes, indeed, it folds down, and sure enough, that door goes closed. Jesus, there's more detail there that I didn't notice, like that little indentation. I love that whole section at the front there where it pops out and moves about. A lot of the gray here actually ends up looking more white in space. Very interesting. Love it, though. Let's open up those back hanger, well, wheels again. Love how they just reach out. Yeah, that's really nicely done, even if there's a little bit of clipping there currently. Anyway, pretty sexy ship. Let's see. Can we get those little tiny thrusters to do anything? They're not currently doing much. Let's rotate our camera about here a little bit. I'm pretty sure reverse, yes indeed. Those things I thought were just intakes are indeed giving some output when we go backwards. And then those thrusters at the back, looks like it's only those two big ones there that do anything, but they are pretty awesome looking. This ship sure is a beauty once you actually get it in space. Sitting on the, well, in the hangar, it's not the best thing ever, but Jesus Christ, once you see it in motion, it starts looking beautiful. I still feel like it is shockingly big, but, well, like I said, it's got a quantum drive. You sort of end up feeling like it needs space, but look how small our person is in there. Next to a limo, you get the feeling this thing would actually be pretty damn big. Anyhow, let's go ahead, pop ourselves back into first person, and just prove that it does indeed have a quantum drive. Where shall we ping off to? Shall we find Yela? Nope, there it is, right there. And we'll just shoot over to that, because everyone likes an asteroid field. And we can, of course, do this from third person. Whack! Such a credible thing. I love it so. Beautiful, beautiful sights to see, eh? Anyway, here we are at Yela. Looks like there's somebody floating about over there. Shall we ping and see if they're friendly? No, they're not hostile, they're friendly. Okay. Oh, looks like it's probably an abandoned Starfarer. Anyway, we're not here to check that out. We're here to just buzz about a bit. And you can see it's a nice ship. Acceleration is decent. We're not even using a booster, and we've gotten up to a decent speed here. Looks like we originally had a bit of a head start at speed. Let's boost ourselves here. Easy peasy. Visibility, of course, in here isn't the best in the world. As you can see, pretty much everything from the horizontal or horizon line downwards is getting a bit clipped. You can see a bit, but it's like driving a big, hefty car. But it's got decent speed. It's got its weapons here that we can fire, as well as that center gun that I said could rotate about. And you can see if I, we'll just get ourselves going this way and start drifting, shall we? That should do. Proceed to enable our drift. And now we can see we're going to aim over here and right click and the weapons are firing over there. It's a pretty nifty ship. It's pretty beautiful. Like I said, I'm not planning to keep it since I don't really care for a Snub Fighter. Can't go through the jump points, only do quantum, but it is a pretty nice little thing. Anyway, that'll be it for today, guys and gals. Thanks a bunch for watching. As per usual, if you want to get into Star Citizen, you can always buy a game package, and when you sign up, you can use the promo code sort of thing that I have down in the description, and probably on screen right now, you'll get some extra credits in-game. Star Citizen is always... Ooh, well, that was an interesting crash, wasn't it? Always growing and always developing, and as long as we keep harping on the devs, hopefully they'll expand that FOV, because, of course, this is a PC game. It was advertised as I am a PC game. So hopefully we'll get a proper FOB sometime in the future, and some more tweaks to the UI. Oh, and of course 3.0 is coming up sometime this year, where we should actually have landfall on a massive planet, which should be very interesting to see. And hopefully they'll tweak the speed thing, because I was decoupled, so there's no reason our speed should have been dropping. Burp, 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 burp. Anyway, guys and gals, thanks so much for watching, and I shall see you all next time. Ta-ta.